Hello to everybody that is tuning in with us tonight for another episode with the Coach's Corner. Our lovely guests are getting their cameras turned back on, and so while they do that, I would just like to say a few words. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Vesper.
How are you doing?
How is everybody?
Fantastic.
Outstanding. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing lovely. Thank you. For everybody that's tuning in, feel free to ask questions. Just go ahead and pop them into the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on that, and I will pass them off to our guests tonight. So try to keep them on topic if you can. If they can't get to the questions, it's not personal. It's just a matter of time. And with that, I am going to disappear. I'm going to hand this off to you, Viscount Tristan, and let you get us started.
Well, thank you. And thanks everybody for joining us. One of the topics we want to bring up tonight is something that I think a lot of people deal with. And that is, how do you deal with getting good if you're off in a distant area where you don't have a lot of skill around you? There are certain groups, baronies, shires, things like that have got dukes, counts, knights in them that provide some solid mentorship at practice. But what if you're in a small group, or you don't have very many fighters? Maybe you're on your own, or maybe you only have a couple of people and you just want to start out. How do you get started? What are some good ideas for how to get going? And that's what we want to cover tonight is how to deal with that, how to take on forming a plan. And we've got our guest tonight. We've got Duke Sean. I'll pass off to one of the best trainers in the SCA, bar none. He really has put a lot of time and effort into figuring out how to become a better fighter. And so I want to have him introduce His Majesty Daman. So Duke Sean, on to you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Wanted to thank everyone for joining us. This is a topic that has impacted us for a long time, because Artemisia has always been somewhat rural. We have only one real major population center in Artemisia, and that's the Salt Lake City area. We have another group in Boise, Idaho, and then a couple spots up in Montana. And one of those is the area of Billings, Montana. That's where His Majesty Daman is from. Daman was cut his teeth as a squire in that area at a time when there really, like, even before there was really any notice up there. So I'll let him explain that in just a second there, but really happy to have him. His experience in being a squire and learning our sport in a really rural part of our kingdom is really kind of a great success story. And we were just talking to Tristan about him kind of having grown up in the same environment in the early 80s, when Milwaukee was the far off reaches of the mid realm. So we've got some folks here that have a lot of experience with how to get the training that you need when you don't have the wealth of experience right there in your area. So, Your Majesty, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And if you would introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the path of the Barony of Bronzehelm.
Thank you for having me in this Coach's Corner. You guys are doing great work here, and we really appreciate it. I love catching these episodes when I can, and it's absolutely great. I'm King Daman Macmillan, currently King of Artemisia. Like Sean said, I grew up in the Shire of Bronzehelm for a lot of years. We've just been a barony in the last 3 years. We're just about to have our first changeover, but we're 5.5, 6 hours away from the next closest barony. And when I started fighting back in 1996, it was definitely a different world. We had people working assembly lines, trying to work pickle buckets into armor just to get people on the field, and just try to figure out what the heck this game of SCA heavy fighting was, because we were just kind of guessing. We did have one knight in the area, Sir Danu, who was knighted a few years before I started, but even Danu will tell you he's more of a club 'em and go sort of fighter. So he was not exactly the teaching sort of kind. So we really just kind of had to try to figure things out on our own. And once I got rolling, it was really myself and Sir Tierlock, my brother from another mother, who really got things rolling, and really just kind of beat the hell out of each other at the beginning to try to figure out what we were supposed to do. When I first started, it was like, oh, a shield. Those are the guys we kill in melees, right? Okay, got it. I started with a glaive. Tierlock had a great sword of Florentine, and then fiberglass spears were introduced to us from the other half of the state with the herd in Boheme. Like, here, try this. Like, spears, they wobble, and I don't get it. I'm like, that's an inefficient weapon style. Like, here, no, it's fiberglass. And it's like, bam, oh, this is great. So I definitely started out as a melee guy who became a sword and board fighter as we went.
So you got started at a time when that part of the kingdom was well, we'll just say neglected to a large extent. There wasn't a lot of stuff happening up there. There wasn't a lot of royalty that visited up there, and I know when I started working with Tierlock in particular, Tierlock ended up being one of my squires. But yeah, there was the time up there where you guys were just kind of making shit up as you go along because there was nobody up there to tell you any different. So what changed? What was the most significant change that you had up there that really was the turning point for your area becoming more training focused?
Really, I'd say it was really when we started interacting more with you and Basil, because you guys would come up here, and it meant the world to us because nobody else was, and if they did, they'd go to the other half of the state. We're the fourth biggest state in the country, so it's not like I can bop down into Idaho just as easy as I can bop across the state, and I have to cross less mountain passes when I go to Idaho. So it's easier for me to go to Idaho than Missoula.
Well, because it's 6 to 8 hours. Is it 8 hours to Missoula?
No, it's 6.
6? Yeah.
6 hours.
Yeah,
6 hours over the Rocky Mountains. So in winter, it can definitely turn into 8 to 10, but ideally at 6.
Yeah.
So really, once we just started getting some focus, hey, no, what in the hell are you guys doing? It's like, what? We were told we could be up here at practice with flamethrowers and no one would ever know. That was one of our jokes, because we just felt like the bastardized child of the kingdom, and I think that we helped bring through our intensity and our pursuits, bring a lot of the right attention up to Bronze Helm, and a lot of the right aspects, and a lot of wanting to get better. I mean, we wanted to be good at what we did. We just had no idea how. So it was really just make the most of those opportunities, and just really cuss out the guys who have those opportunities every week. I can't believe these guys get this stuff every week and they're not better. What are they doing? I'm like, I get this like during the winter once every 3 months, or once a month, or once every couple weeks in the summer when I travel 6 or 8 hours.
I know shortly around that time, so it probably would have been was after I stepped down as prince, so 97. Yeah, it was when Gareth was prince, so it was 97, spring of 97. So we went up to, there's a bunch of us that went to an event in Idaho Falls, which is about 4 hours drive time from Salt Lake City north, and then there's another group in Butte, Montana, which is about another 3 hours past that. Just to give people frame of reference for how far a drive is, for those folks down in Caid who complain about having to drive 30 minutes to get to your next practice. So yeah, it was spring of 97, and we took a bunch of folks from Salt Lake and from Idaho Falls, and we're like, okay, we're going to go up to this practice up in Butte, and we'll do a little fighter practice up there, a little regional fighter practice, and see who shows up, and do some training with those guys. And we got up there, and there was, I kid you not, there was 60 fighters, 60 from the state of Montana, from all over the state of Montana. And, I don't know what it was. Maybe they just heard that me and Basil and Gareth and a couple of guys were coming up, but man, there was 60 people. And we were just kind of blown away at the sheer number of people that showed up from across the state. And it was one of those, I think it was a pivotal moment in the development of that region in general.
Oh yeah, because it really showed a bunch of the people that there's a bigger pond. Like I love the story, and I love the story with Tearlock, because when Tearlock tells it, he's like, yeah, all these people are like, oh, Tearlock, you're so great. I'm like, I'm just guessing and making shit up. I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And apparently a bunch of people up here are like, oh, he'll go and give it to Sean. And Tearlock's like, no, I won't. And I understood it. Tearlock understood it. A lot of people had to see it. So as soon as Sean and Tearlock fought, the practice kind of stopped, and everybody went to see what was going to happen. And then Sean just beat the hell out of Tearlock up one side and down the other, because Sean knows what he's doing. And Tearlock's like walking away from the fight, like, see, I told you, big fish, little pond. Let's get in the pond and let's be better. Come on.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that thought that he was just a cock of the walk, and he was just going to show us the thing or two, and that he was the next guy on the lightning path and all that, and Tearlock, to his enormous credit, always was really good about. He had a really good sense of where he was in the pool, right? He always knew, like, this is where I think I am, and he was just really spot on about that. And so when he's telling all these guys up there, it's like, I got a lot of work to do. And they're like, no, you're the best thing since sliced bread. And he's like, I got a lot of work to do. And then they got to see it. And it was a little bit different. So Tristan, you had a similar experience probably some 10 years before that. So you want to kind of tell us your...
Sure thing. I mean, I was young. I started in the SCA when I was 15. I literally skateboarded across town to go to a fighting practice to get into a suit of armor that somebody already had been fighting in for half an hour, 45 minutes, and it was sweaty and nasty. But that's how into it I was. We didn't have anybody really that was beyond about squire level. I remember being shown how to, throw a basic shot and whatnot, but it was mostly here, get an armor to figure it out. Like, just go ahead and do whatever it is you feel like doing. And I just remember getting beaten, like a redheaded stepchild. Nothing to say against redheads or stepchildren or anything like that, but you just get beaten and you learn by trial and error. And at the time, there was, the nearest knight was 6 hours drive away, and I remember, we were just in a distant kind of hinterlands group that, although it was a large population group, it didn't have a lot of fighters, didn't have a lot of excelled, fighters of elite caliber or even skilled caliber. And I remember we had a knight move in from another region, another whole kingdom, and it was a big, like, oh my God, we've got a knight. Yeah, unfortunately, because of his work schedule, he didn't come to practice hardly at all. So we had a knight, but he was basically in absentia. And I was young. I mean, started at 15 years old. My first 5 or 6 years, it was just, I had the mentality, I show up and we just deal with whatever we have, and that's what it is. The idea of traveling was very hard for me because I was young, didn't have any money, that sort of thing. And I think in terms of what I wanted to talk about this show was, the SCA has changed obviously a lot since the 80s. However, the same problems still exist. What happens when you have you and maybe a couple other people that want to learn how to fight? You're very intent on it, but you don't have anybody right at hand that can say, here, let me show you what to do. And so what I wanted to transfer was what I have figured out since then, which is the formula. The formula is, you need to have people that have got some skill and ability. They don't need to be dukes. They don't need to be even knights. They need to be at least solid, intermediate level fighters that are willing to show up and teach you and show you how to do what it is you want to do. Whether you want to be a superior melee fighter, whether you want to be a superior tournament fighter, they have to be willing to share their experience with you. That's half the formula. The other half is you need to show up and show your interest, show your passion for learning. Don't treat practice like well, I'll go if I can skip watching Netflix and having a pizza. I'll go to practice if I feel good. I'll go to practice if I tonight feel like getting, some armor on and learning. If you go beyond that and go to, I'm going to practice because I want to learn this stuff, and you show your passion, there's two parts of that formula. There's the teacher who wants to teach what he knows, and the student who wants to learn. It's like plugging an electrical outlet in. You need both of them to create the circuit. If you have a student who's lackadaisical and say, well, maybe I want to learn today, maybe I don't, whatever, and he kind of fizzles out, and you've got a teacher or a mentor who says, I really want to teach you, it's going to go nowhere. Same way, you've got a teacher or somebody who's skilled who's like, well, maybe I'll show up if I can learn something, but he's got low energy, he doesn't show up, and you've got a really eager student, you're going to get no connection. They need to connect, and that's what creates that circuit. When that circuit gets created, you have something like what Sean and His Majesty mentioned, which is things like a regional practice comes about. One of those two groups will arrange it. Either the people that are eager to have mentors come in will say, let's do a regional practice. Let's get together, royal peers, knights. Let's get them to come here. If we do a regional practice, maybe they'll come. And I've been on both sides of this. As a mentor, I love going to regional practices because I will have a high level of confidence that I'm going to get some eager students that are like, I want to be good at this. Show me something. Give me something to take home. I'm going to steal everything I can, and I'm going to try to make it mine. Like, if I connect with that student, I'm loving it all day long. And that's what makes those situations, those regional practices or those meetups very much worthwhile. And right now we're dealing with a whole new situation with the virus thing, but the formula is still the same. Find the people that want to learn, find the people that want to teach, and put them together. You put those people together and you figure out how to make that work, you're going to have a winning formula. And if you're in a small group and you need to start with gathering those people that want to learn together, gather them. If there's only 2 or 3 of you, that's fine. If you can get 4 or 5, that's good. You get 7 or 8, that's great. You get those people together and say, now let's find the mentors that we can get and let's connect with them. Old school way, you'd find those people that want to learn and you'd say, let's take a road trip and we'll go to where the mentors are. But things are changing now. Now you can find people that want to come to you and teach. So it's easy. In some ways, it's easier to get those people to come to you and find a way to connect up. I've found that to be the formula, and the nature of how it connects can be different. You can be creative with it, but it's that connection part, mentor to student, passionate teacher, connect them up. What do you guys think?
And to segue right into that, I'd like to welcome His Excellency Sagan. Is joining us a little bit late after a little bit of excitement at his house. And that's something that Sagan has talked about quite a bit too, is that passion and that desire. And so it seems like a good time to welcome you and to have your thoughts on that portion of it.
Well, it is the most valuable combination from my point of view that you can have. But first, Your Majesty, it's good to see you. You obviously still enjoy my support in every way. Should you need me, please call me.
Will do.
Tell you how good it is to see you.
It's great to see you too. It's been too long.
Yes, absolutely. Over the years, that has been one of the toughest things to get across in a way. Sometimes people, and oddly enough, they've been told, you can't just walk up to Duke so-and-so and ask him to do something with you. You can't go fight with His Majesty. You can't, and it's not, in most cases, that's absolutely not true. But when you're at practice, what I learned is go looking around, find those people, because there would be X number of people that would come to me, and that was great. But, I also noticed pockets of people that were way off over here, and it was like, okay, well, every so often, go over there. And what you would find out, as His Excellency Tristan was saying, there's 2 or 3 of them that invariably are going to go, oh yeah, I definitely want to talk to you. And then there's going to be others that aren't, but that's okay. It's getting that combination of interested parties together.
Yeah. I had, shortly after I got out of the military, I was pretty excited about getting back into fighting and sharing what I know and trying to help people where I could. And I actually put quite a bit of effort early on into going to some of the more remote groups and trying to help them with their fighting. And I'd done that in one group, and the word got back to me that the impression that they had was that I just, went out there to the middle of nowhere just so I could beat some people up so I could feel better about myself. And that was not really very encouraging for me, putting out that time and effort to help people after that. And so to some degree, the people that have the information that you're looking for, they need to know that that you are there and that you are interested. And I know Daman, up in that area in all of Montana, you guys had a lot of what Sagan was talking about, where you were told that you don't talk to the knights and you don't talk to the royalty,
Yeah.
and that was part of the culture at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It just wasn't done. I mean, in the group back when I started, an AOA is a big deal, but it was a big deal to the group. If someone had a lordship or ladyship, oh my God, it was a whole thing. It's definitely one of those where you had to break through the culture. Like even starting into it, like one of my favorite fish out of water sort of stories was when Brian came back for Uprising after we left and had the Tarragon party in the tent. And you grabbed me and Tialok and Tierra. It was like, come on, let's go. And we walked in and we're like, is this where we're supposed to be? Is this what's supposed to be going on? Or even when we became man-at-arms at Estrella, we're wandering around the middle of the dark, popping our heads into tents going, oh, no, there are a bunch of people with hats on in here. It can't be it. We start to leave and you come out. Where are you guys going? We're doing the thing. Come on. I was, oh, wait, this is where we're supposed to be. Oh, okay. All right, I guess this is where we're going. I guess this is okay. Let's do it. So it was definitely part of that culture shock or range shock, because we spent just so much time up on out in the outskirts.
Tristan, did you guys experience the same way, Tristan?
Yeah, kind of. One thing I wanted to add into this was, if you look at it, it's so helpful to look at things from the opposite point of view. If you are looking at the situation from you live out in the kind of the sticks and that sort of thing, and you see a duke or a knight or something come to your area, you're probably thinking, wow, I've been looking forward to this. And then he shows up to a regional practice or to some kind of a practice, and he probably walks through all of you, and you go, whoa, boy, he must have just went here to just beat a bunch of us up because he's so much better. Well, turn that around, because like I said, I've been on both sides of that. I've watched those people come in, and it's easy to fall into that. But I've also been the person who's gone off into kind of the regions that don't have any skilled fighters. And as a skilled fighter, I never blamed any of them for not having the same skill I did. What I was looking for, though, of those people, if I came in and I was with two or three people that came with me that went to a group that didn't have a lot of skill in it, I wasn't looking for highly skilled people. I wasn't looking for somebody that could beat me. What I was looking for, who are the most passionate people to learn? I was looking for not the people that were going to stand around going, oh my God, he's good. What are we going to do? That wasn't the people I was interested in. I was interested in the person that said, I want to know more. Show me, teach me, beat me up, but then explain to me how you did it. Explain to me how I faced that. If you get that kind of mind, that's what I was looking for, to connect with. Because as a teacher, I went into those situations more as a mentor. Like, I was looking to find that. When I was that person, way back when North Shield was only a region, not even a principality or anything, I remember there was a period of time where we had some of the mid-realm royalty come out periodically, and it was kind of cool when it happened. And then Finn, who became my knight, came out, and he established North Shield as principality, and he fought a number of us. In fact, I remember fighting at an event, and he came out after we fought the tournament and said, all right, I want to fight the winner of the tournament. I happen to have won the tournament, and I'm puffing and puffing, and the king comes out and says, I want to fight you. And I'm like, oh, great. You're fresh. You just got your armor on. I'm huffing and puffing after fighting like 12 rounds because it was a big tournament. And now I get to go fight the king. Oh, great. Well, what I realized is that he saw things in a different way. By the time he left, there were a number of people that he said, these guys should be squires. It was myself, Siegfried, who's now a duke, Adrian. There was a number of us. He said, these guys have been fighting. They've been practicing. They've been training. They're really good. They need the light shown on them. And the Penzic afterwards, he offered to become squires, and we became squires to him. And so it was one of those things where, even though we were out kind of in the hinterlands, we were trying to be better. And when we crossed paths and finally found somebody that said, hey, I want to offer my mentorship to you, that's when we connected. And that was a very special thing that happened. But when a mentor comes into a group like that, he's looking for who are the most passionate, who are the most committed, who are the most engaged. And those are the people he's going to engage with. If you're standing at the edge of the field going, I don't even know what to do against this guy, I don't know, there's not going to be the connection point.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how inexperienced you are. If you have the passion to connect, go connect. You will learn. A good mentor will take you even from square one up through what you need to learn. Never think that, oh, I need to be at least, level 5 before somebody's going to take me on as a student. The people that love doing this, and myself included, I don't care how early I get you or how late I get you. I'm not looking for a certain prerequisite knowledge. I'm just looking for the heart, the passion. If you're into it, I'll take you through it all the way from beginning to end. No problem. I love doing it. In fact, the earlier I get you, the easier it is for me, because I don't have to untrain you in things that you've been doing badly for years, because that's hard to do. If I can get you early and get you on good habits early, it's easier. So never think that you don't qualify for attention from a skilled person.
And as the trainer, okay, what I learned fairly early on is I went through some of the experiences you guys have related already, where I showed up and I didn't have a plan. That was my fault. Okay, and I learned that very, very early. So what I then adopted was the plan of, I would find the person who was going to actually be the host of the fighter practice, the training session, and we would title it that way. It wasn't come fight with Sagan. It wasn't come fight with so-and-so. It was, here's where we are. Here's what we're going to do. And the open fighting was at the end, usually on Sunday afternoon, where we would spend 3 hours doing nothing but fighting, and then have 2 hours of follow-up after that. But unfortunately, I've heard that story, Your Excellency, that and Your Grace, as a matter of fact, this guy showed up and all he did was kick our ass and then he went home. And it was just like, wow, well, that was a disservice, unless you need to remember that, again, we've been over this before. There's 2 roles, trainer and trainee. If you were the good trainee and didn't you raised your hand and said, this is not what we wanted, this is what we'd like to do, that's great. But if you just let it roll, then that's not good. And then on the trainer side, it does depend on who shows up. But communication is key, again. So.
Yeah. So this actually kind of leads to a question that we came up, that popped up, I guess, in the feed, right along these lines. So how do you suggest newer fighters get over the fear of approaching a super duke who is literally whooping everybody? And you know, again, having been on the training side of that, when I go out and try to help somebody, I mean, when I was doing that, especially early on, my experience broadly was pretty positive, but it just takes it takes one oh shit to cover up a bunch of attaboys, right? And so when I get word back from even one group where that was the impression that they were left with, for me, when I was putting out some considerable effort, financial and time wise to do that, and I thought I was helping. I get out there, you don't hear anything about it direct from him. You get back channel later says, oh well, he just came out here and did this thing, and which was not at all my intent. I had to hear that from other sources, and it was very disappointing. To for nothing else, to have left that impression, whether with whatever my intent may have been, that was the impression that they were left with, and that didn't sit well with me. But along those lines, to answer this question, it's important to understand that first off, as knights, it is our job to do this. It is our job. It is specifically in Corpora that says we will continue to teach and train our sport and to make people better at it. It is literally our job to help people become better fighters. Besides the fact that it is our job, it also happens to be the best job in the world. And we love teaching people who love our sport. It is intoxicating. And after having had my successes over the years, the thing that keeps me going right now is giving other people that success and helping other people to realize the joy and the success that I've had from this sport for a lifetime, and being able to give that to other people is intoxicating. It is so immensely satisfying, and so much more satisfying than any joy, any success I can have for myself. And so you need to realize that it's not just okay for you to approach the best fighter in the world and say, how do I become the best fighter in the world? We want you to be the best fighter in the world. I want you to be better than me. And I believe that anybody can be better than me. As I was saying earlier before we started the show, I got this good. If somebody can get this good, a person can get this good, and it might as well be you. But we can't know who's going to take this and run with it and make something of it. Because we don't have time. And so to a certain extent, you just kind of get the gumption up to ask, but hopefully it'll help people understanding that, to know that we want you to ask. You're not wasting our time, not by any stretch of the imagination. This is why we're here. This is our job. So come and make us do our job, because we really, really want to.
So that's interesting. Your Majesty, have you found that when you are king, people are less likely to come and talk to you?
When it comes to the fighting aspect, I feel like it is. I feel like there's when you're king, that's definitely, oddly enough, tough to get fights some days. You as king out there in like a group of unbelted fighters, I don't feel like I should be struggling to get people to fight me. And that's how is one of my pet peeves. There are plenty of times as king that I've sent Timur out, like, Timur, go. You're the people person. Go get me some fights. Okay. And I see Timur go get His Majesty. Go get His Majesty. Go get him. And I don't feel like the crown needs to fill the dance card. This is the person you should want to fight, no matter who it is.
Absolutely.
That's who I'm going for when I'm not the crown, when I'm not king. It's like, okay, you're the king. Let's go. Let's see where you are. Let's see where I am.
Right.
And I mean, I'm uniquely, as when I'm crowned, I'm uniquely suited to give you advice and give you a kingdom perspective that I may not always be able to give.
Yes, yes, very much so. And part of that, just like your Gray Sean has mentioned, we've all sort of mentioned it in one way or the other, comes back to culture.
Yeah.
How is the populace educated? How is the fighter community educated? You may have such as His Grace down in Salt Lake City. They're used to walking up to him all the time. But when he travels up to His Majesty's area, there may be people that go up there that, I don't know him. I don't think I can just go up and talk to him. And that unfortunately bleeds over onto the fighting field.
The pure
And,
fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are somewhat battling the culture. But as Your Majesty said, that's a great idea. Send an ambassador out and tell them, hey, I want fights. And I don't care who, and I don't care how many, but let's get this rolling. And then if His Majesty so chose, he could turn it into a practice and training session with every other fighter or every fighter. So.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple other questions coming in here, and I'm gonna skip the first one. I'll go back to that because that's a fun one. But one of the ones that come up is, how do you deal with the knights that don't teach or refuse to teach unless you fight with their style? For example, unless you fight sword and board, don't waste my time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can relate to that one, because when we had the night move in, he didn't show up to practice, and when he did not teach. And I would say initially the gut feeling was, well, you're a knight, you should be teaching. What it's one thing to put that expectation on, but realize from the other person's standpoint, what if they're not a good teacher? What if they don't feel in their element, being able to transfer what it is that they know?
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever demand of someone something that they're not comfortable offering. That's just
True.
immature.
Sure.
If you ask of them, please, can you help me? And they say, well, I'd like to, but I'm not skilled at I'll do my best, but be ready, because I might not know how to do it very well. Be understanding of that. There are ways to approach that type of a situation. But if they don't show up to practice, just realize they're not here. Go with what you have there.
Right.
Play the cards you're dealt. Don't cry over the fact that somebody isn't at practice, or maybe they're not comfortable teaching. And believe me, I've had some of my best friends are knights that when I went to them and said, tell me how you do what you do, they look at me like I can't even describe it. They had no teaching ability whatsoever. Terribly talented martial artists that had no ability to articulate how they did what they did. It happens. Don't worry about it. Talk with them, try to get it out of them how they do what they do. Get as much as you can. You're stealing. Imagine yourself trying to steal what it is they know, rather than asking them to give it to you, because they might not know how to give it to you. And this is where you have to realize that a good teacher, a good trainer, a good coach is a rare skill. It's a very rare skill, on top of them being a good practitioner or good martial artist. Like, that's a combination that's extraordinarily rare. Don't expect that every good fighter is a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And don't expect that every good teacher is necessarily a good fighter. Look for what you have access to, and don't demand that somebody, come and teach you. Like, a lot of people view teaching in terms of, well, come and teach me because I'm entitled to have that. No, you're not entitled to have that. You're lucky if you have somebody that has teaching skill near you. If you have it, show your passion and go and build a relationship with them. And that's when you're going to get the teaching and the mentoring that you're looking for. But don't just show up expecting that you should be taught. Like, that's just not, not good for you.
Yeah, the other side of that is there's definitely those people who cannot teach. As knights, it is our job, and there is a certain expectation that we could train the basics of just about anything. But not all trainers are created equal, and that's for sure. But as the question states, there are indeed those fighters out there who won't teach anything but what they specialize in, and there are also those trainers out there who aren't going to teach you because they don't want to give away their secrets. There are that play it close to the vest and that sort of stuff. There's the people who can't teach, for lack of a better word, can't, and then there's those people who won't, which I think this question addresses a little bit more. And to that, I would say the people who won't train you, possibly because they can't. Honestly, most of those people, you don't want what they would have to teach you anyway, because if they have to keep these closely guarded secrets, that they have their magic bullet and they've got their formula that they figure out for a certain measure of success, if they refuse to teach you something because you're not fighting their weapon system, that is absolutely a failure on their part, not on yours. And those people really are the exception anymore. They are much more rare than they were 40 years ago. They're much more rare now. There is somebody out there who is willing to teach you what you need to know. And if the person that you happen to have access to in your local area that it happens to be a person that won't teach you the weapon systems you want to work with, you have other resources elsewhere. And for a person that says, if you're not going to fight sword and board, don't waste my time. Well, yeah, the reverse is that, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time on somebody who isn't going to put out the very minimal effort that is required to give you any kind of pointer on the weapon system that you're using. At the very least, they can fight you, so you have some experience fighting against somebody who uses sword and board. I mean, that's a pretty minimal expectation in my mind. So yeah, they're saying don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. There are more trainers, and especially with the tools that we have now, there are more trainers that are available out there that are easily accessible for you to get what you need.
One of the other things, and we keep coming back to this, is culture. The road to the accolade is different in each of the kingdoms, and it can be different in each household. From the day I joined the SCA, became affiliated with a household, and became a squire, as part of understanding what my job as a squire was, training was specifically stated. It wasn't an aside. And fortunately, I took that to heart, and it turned out well for me. On the other side of that, as Grace just mentioned, if the person is willing at least to fight in that weapons form again and again and again, then fight them and then ask questions. They may not be willing to train, and there is nothing in writing that says they absolutely have to. Would I want them to as a brother knight, sister knight? Yes, I absolutely would want them to. But if they don't want to, or they can't, or they're not good at it, then, as His Grace said, move elsewhere. And this to me, Your Majesty, is probably right up your alley, living where you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about finding the right people who you can connect with, who you can talk to, who you can learn from. Because as much as we're all trying to speak the same language, sometimes we all don't speak the same language. Mm-hmm. You can be teaching something that somebody completely gets, and the next person comes up and just looks at you like, I don't understand what you just said. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. It's about finding the right people that click for you, which was one of the things that we did. It's like, okay, we're going 8 hours each way to find somebody who can talk to us the fighting the way that we understand, right, and give us information that we can turn into a tangible result. And that's what we did. And then we had to go from the guys who like, that was cool. How'd you do that? I don't know. I just did it. To, okay, now I need to figure out how to explain this to people, because if not, I'm just going to end up beating up my small pool of people, and then I'm all alone, and then I'm stuck in the same boat I was before, except for now I have nobody to fight. So we had to learn how to be teachers to bring everybody else up, because we want everybody else to be better, because the better you are, the better fights I get, the better I have a chance of being from the greedy point of view of it.
The rising tide raises all the boats.
There you go. There it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that again leads into the question that was posted earlier that I skipped over because that's the question that comes from Tierlock.
Oh,
my
no.
my former squire, Damon's brother, who has already been mentioned here a couple of times.
It doesn't have curse words, does it?
Not this time. You know,
Okay,
I mean,
good.
they're implied, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I had to laugh at this because I know exactly why he's asking this question. How has technology affected, for better or worse, your ability to train a fighter from a long distance?
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to start with this one because when I was working with Tierlock, you know, he was a 10-hour drive away from me up in Billings, right? Living with Damon. And I'm in Salt Lake, and I was on the phone with him, like, by the way, this was a phone that plugged into the wall.
The what?
Right? Yeah.
It what?
Well, it was a sharp upgrade from the stone tablets that we've been chiseling into before that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I remember.
phone plugs into the wall, and I'm on the phone.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the phone with him, and I'm like, okay, so stand like this, put your feet shoulder width apart here, and take a step here, and do this, and like I'm having to have him imagine what I'm doing in my room without being able to see if he's doing the same thing, you know, and it worked. I mean, we made it work because
Right.
we had to make it work. But man, now, I mean, look what we're doing right now. Like for the last almost 6 months on the Coach's Corner, we've been sharing some of the best training minds in our sport every week, giving people like unheard of access to some of the best training that our sport has ever had. And it's not just easy. It's like, you know, like Tristan originally talked to us about the Coach's Corner about a year ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was right around Christmas time last year when
just
I had this
before.
idea. I'm like, why don't we get these people that are so good at training to do a YouTube channel? And how about we do this where people can sit and watch and listen and get ideas and go at it from there? Why don't we do that? Yeah, it was right before Christmas, I think, or right before the New Year's.
Yeah, I mean, it was about this time last year you were kind of talking about this, and it was like, yeah, we can do that. And then the Rona hit, and then all of a sudden it's like, why have we not been doing this for years?
Right.
You know, I mean, yeah, between YouTube and Facebook and Zoom and you know, there are so many tools that we have available now. I mean, I've been doing YouTube analysis for at least 10, 15 years. And you know, the tools that we have out there now are just so ridiculously available. The technology is such that, especially for living in remote areas, you know, you have access to the best training minds in the world. I mean, I constantly get, you know, random people that send me Facebook messages and says, hey, can you look at my fight? Can you help me out with a thing? And the answer is, as we discussed earlier, yes, I can. And yes, I will, because I want you to be better. And you've made it easy for me to look at your fight and analyze that and to figure out what you need to do. So that's, I would say overall, technology is helped, not for the worse, absolutely for the better. It has completely changed everything we've done.
Yeah, I have a great story on this one, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
From back in the day, back when we were first trying to learn what we were doing, his Gray Sean came up to Butte, Montana, and he was supposed to meet up with Tierlock, and Tierlock had to work or something. So me and Tierlock come over to Butte, and what Tierlock told me was, when you see Sean, you just tell him to show you what he was going to show me, and then you can show me. Sean looked like I had another head growing out of the
side. Oh, hell no. You did not, like, yeah, that's why I'm like, you did not just send me your second.
Right. So we go out to fight, and Sean's like, oh, fine. Okay, let's go do this. And we go out to fight, and Sean's like, okay, you need to do this. You need to put your hand over here. You need to move your shield over here. Here's like 4 things. Go work on it. And there's like 8 of us at the beginning of this practice. And I go out and fight 2 other people. I come back to fight Sean again. And I corrected those things. And Sean's like, gives me a little side look like, okay, you're listening. Here's a little bit more. Let's see if you listen some more. And he gives me another 3 or 4 things. And we do this like 3 or 4 times. And I'm just soaking it up because I'm just so happy to have somebody who gives me a line, a direct path. Like, oh, this is what I do. I need to do this. Okay, I can fix that. I can do that. And every time I'd come back after a couple fights with it fixed. And it was like, okay, oh, sponge, just give me the information. Because so much of it back then was just like, oh, you're doing good. You'll figure it out. And now we're at a time where my grand squire is trying to learn Sword and Mardu, like Timur style. So I'm out there at a practice field holding a cell phone, video, live streaming it, and having Timur give me information so I can give it to her. Because I'm like, I don't know what Timur does, but I can get you to the right people, and I can help
right now. I can get you to him right now.
Right now, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how far things have developed.
Oh,
And that's where, you know, again, when I first heard of the Coach's Corner, I was like, okay, let's see what this is, right? And immediately starting to think about it, it's like, wait a minute. There's a group of trainers offering up, okay, I'm in. It's one of those things where we do have the opportunity based on current and what will become future technology to actually assist as many as we can of those who are willing to ask. And what we leave behind can be here for decades. Now, whether it's relevant decades from now, that's another question.
Yeah.
But technology, yes, Tierlock, it has really helped this old man. That's for sure.
Well, and one thing I want to add on to that too is that, yes, we have the technology of doing things like sharing videos of fights, doing here's how you can work on a Pell. Here are drills and exercises you can do with a partner. The one thing about technology that we can't overlook is how it connects us person to person to allow us to get together personally.
Yes.
There will never be a substitute for having a live person with you or a mentor.
Right.
Let me show you how this feels. Let me show you how this works. And I wanted to bring this up, and this is something, probably the best success story I've ever seen of somebody who was in a group. And this was my friend, Sir Drew from down in North Chicago. And he was, if I remember right, he was an unbelt, certainly. I don't think he was a squire, but he had a group, didn't have much participation of knights that in the group that would mentor. He just said, you know what, I want to start, let's learn. He started, it was, I think initially a Facebook group, but he did it with a group of people in his area that wanted to learn how to fight. He called it The Drill. And he started to invite mentors that came out to Chicago to teach how to fight. He'd arrange a weekend. It was kind of like an event, but not really, where he'd do it either in his front yard or he'd get a little site where they could go do some fighting. And then they get together afterwards and just have beers and do a barbecue or whatever. But he would call a mentor up and said, I want to fly you in here. And I don't think he wound up paying the airfare or what have you. It wasn't like a formal sort of situation, but he brought in somebody to say, I want you to come and teach. I've got a focus group of 8 to 10 people. Come and teach us. And he did this year after year after year. I was involved with a couple of them. Duke Sean came out for one of them. Duke Brownus came out for another one. He had a few other people that came in sequence. Of that group, like 5 of them were knighted. One won Mid-Realm Crown Tournament. Another one, Principality of the Mists tournament. Like, there was a rack of successes that came from that dedication of even one time having a mentor or a couple of mentors come in, teach fighting, and then they went off and practiced it, put all that stuff into practice. Yes, they used technology. They filmed a lot of the teaching so they could go back to it and remember and be reminded of what they were taught. But it was not just show up to practice, put armor on, and just get beaten on and hope we figure it out. This was more of a structured, how are we going to take this mentorship, make the most of it, and then keep learning. But it was a project. And I think for the modern age, something like that is going to be probably the most applicable. The idea of just watching YouTube videos and getting to be a better fighter, you could, but that's going to be a tough road. But getting somebody in your group with you in armor, showing you how to do it, is still going to be the best way to go.
Yeah, and I think it kind of leads to like some of the concrete things that people can do in remote areas or smaller areas. YouTube is one of the tools that we have at our disposal. But like Tristan said, you can't expect to be a godlike fighter just sitting around watching YouTube. YouTube is one of those things where you take your video, you post it up there, you send it to somebody like me, and I tell you what's wrong with it and how to fix it. It is a tool. It is not. I mean, the point that Tristan I think makes is there is no substitute for in-person training. But that kind of leads to some of what one of the like concrete things that we can do. One of the problems with being in a remote area where you don't have access, or you don't have somebody that is in your area that can give you day-to-day instruction is you have to take advantage. You have to make the best of what you do get. If you have a limited amount of face-to-face time with a trainer, you have to make the absolute best of the time that you do get with that trainer. And then you have to go back and you have to make the best use of your time outside of that. And that means that, you gotta go home and make sure you're doing the work. And that leads to another question we have here in just a second. We'll get to, but you got to make the best use of the time that you do have with those.
And you've touched on it. Tristan has touched on it. One of the biggest assets for those who live remotely is tell us you're there. Contact us. Let us know, hey, I live out here. Are you willing to help me? Yeah. Well, of course, we're going to be willing to help you. But that's the big thing. Again, you can go look at YouTube quite a bit. But as his Grace said, there have been a number of people that have posted something on YouTube and then contacted him and said, here we go. Are you willing to do this with me? And as Tristan and his Grace and even His Majesty have talked about, the more you can influence a trainer that you are truly interested and maybe possibly passionate about this sport, I guarantee you will get the attention you seek.
Yeah. And it really doesn't take much. We have a pretty keen eye for the people that actually love what we do. It's pretty obvious to us when people love what we do. And again, it's not just, it's intoxicating, and there definitely comes a point where, usually it takes, you got to ask the first time. But if you prove to us that you're going to put in the work and that you have that passion, you don't have to ask anymore. Because we're going to start ramming it down your throat because we know that you want it and we know that you're actually going to do something with that information. Right. And to kind of touch on what Tristan was talking about, importing, right? If you're out there in a remote group, one of the things that we had always seen from the wilds of Montana where His Majesty grew up, the center of fighting in our kingdom for a long time was Loch Solon, Salt Lake. It can be argued it still is to some degree, but you would have somebody from Montana that would break the bank to get down to an event down in the Salt Lake City area. They would go to a tournament, they would fight 2 fights, they'd go out in 2, and they'd never talk to anybody. And they considered it a completely wasted trip because I spent all this time and money to go down there to fight these guys. I got 2 fights in the tournament and then I came home, and there was nothing there. Pool your resources for your local group, contact somebody, and there are plenty of people on the Coach's Corner that you could go to say, hey, would you come to my group and do this? Absolutely. you know, it goes a long way if you can cover our basic expenses. If you say, I'm going to give you gas money to come up here to come out to practice. Personally, for me, I feel that if somebody values enough what I have to say about our sport, that they're willing to cover my basic travel expenses, because I'm not independently wealthy. If you're going to give me gas money to come in and teach you how to fight, if it is that important to you as a knight, I feel that it is my obligation to accommodate that, because you've eliminated the one prohibitive factor for me. And if you are willing to make that kind of investment, the work that I can do with your entire group in a weekend is going to be far more effective and efficient than you breaking your bank to try to get to an event, go 2 fights and be done with it.
Yes.
Because we can like we did in Chicago with the drill. It's like, you get me out there, and yeah, we spent 2 days out there, and
that was an intensive learning, and I've gone to like 2 or 3 of those. That was a very intensive learning, a saturation weekend.
Yeah.
It really was immersive. Amazing. I loved it. It was one of the most fun times I've had.
And yeah, we are more than willing to do that. If, you know, but again, we're not, and it's, make no mistake, this is not a money-making operation for us by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're going to cover my basic expenses, I have an obligation to accommodate you, and I absolutely will. If you're going to tell me I'm going to pay your airfare to come out here to Chicago to do this, I am going to do that. I'm going to find time to do that. And you are going to have access to my experience, for all of your people there. You know, I did the same thing when a friend of mine, Sean of the Chippendales, down in Callantyre, he asked me to come down and teach down there. And you know, I went down there, and it was the same kind of thing that Tristan was talking about with the drill, where the first year I was there, it was a very select number of people that we knew were disproportionately invested, if you will, in that learning process. People that we know that are going to put forth the effort and are going to work for it. And the successes down there were very similar. So yeah, you can import, you can bring people in. We're more than happy to do that. And Sagan's been doing that, you know, long before I had. You know, it's kind of what we do, because it's so much more effective for us. It's a better use of our time as well. And it goes back to that whole thing. It's like, let us know that you're here. Let us know that you want this, and we will accommodate to a large degree. Sagan, you got any more on that?
Well, other than to back up what you're saying and what Tristan was saying, some of the best ones are immersive. Absolutely. When you've got that opportunity and everybody agrees to it, it is one of the fastest ways to spread information, because some of the people attending, and I don't care what level fighter they are, or whether they're just attending, you know, as a fighter's lady or consort of some sort, X percentage of them are absolute sponges, right? And they will be able to restate what was said and what was done. Now then, one of the other things about that session you're talking about, and I have no idea if this was the case, was to make sure there's at least one, if not a whole bunch of video cameras.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's the other way this gets shared immediately, right? And we're back to the technology thing, and we're back to the idea that as a trainer, you don't have to pay me to show up. Right? If I can get there on my own, that's great. I need to buy my own meals. That works too, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is that will accomplish the stated goals, I'm in.
Yeah, totally. So we got another question that popped up here. That's somewhat related to this. So how does one that has no title or not a peer present that they want and can teach? We've talked about this before, that this whole training thing that we do is not something you get into, it's something you end up in. And part of that is it starts with teaching within your means. It starts with trying to meet the need as best you can. If all you have is a flat snap, then you teach the flat snap. If you're particularly good at footwork, then you teach that. And it's and becoming a trainer and a coach, even at the non-peer levels, well, especially at the non-peer levels, that can be very, very difficult because, again, there's the trainer and the trainee, there's the student and the teacher, and in a lot of respects, it takes a willing student. There's I think it is much more difficult for an unbelted fighter to help somebody out, especially unsolicited. If you have another unbelted fighter that you have more experience than, that person has to be willing to, they have to be pretty open, because, let's face it, the white belt helps, and it shouldn't be a requirement, but it helps. And there are definitely unbelted fighters who are not going to listen to somebody who's not a knight. That's a difficult situation for sure. If they are willing to accept input from whatever source they can get it from, that makes that a whole lot easier. And then you just teach within your means as best you can. And if you find that the people that you were trying to train with are resistant to your input, one thing you can definitely do to help that is to say, I don't know that I can give you the answers that you need, but if you'd like, I can get you in contact with the people who can. And and that might just be kind of the gateway or segue that you need to let them know you're invested in their success, whether or not they believe that you have the skills to affect that. If you were forthcoming and saying, maybe I'm not the guy for you, but I got a guy, and let me get you in contact with somebody that can, that'll go a long way to letting them know that you care about their fighting progress, even if they don't want to listen to you specifically because you don't have a belt.
Right.
I think the same thing holds true with, as a teacher, you got to realize when you have a student who basically will say, well, I'm looking for more. And within the SCA, it's, oh, you're only a knight. I want to learn from a duke. Realize if you want to share something, don't try to plant seeds on rocky ground. If somebody has a closed mind and they want something that you're not, let them go. Let them go find the 3-time duke or whatever that they want to learn from. But if you find somebody who's in earnest, it says, you have something that I don't, I want to learn, even if it's one thing, I want to learn that. Find that person and help them. Right. And you will build a relationship that will nourish not only you as a teacher, it'll nourish them as a student. Like, that is a profound perspective to have when it comes to sharing what you know how to do. And I'm sure you'll know how to do more than one thing, right. But realize don't try to push something on somebody that is not, they're not eager for it. Right. And having tried to do that many times myself, I can tell you that I've learned the hard way. Just seek the people that are hungry, right, and feed them. They call it the rice bowl teaching method, where I give you a bowl of rice. If you eat it and empty it and give me back the bowl, I'll put more rice in it and I'll give it to you again. But if I give you a rice bowl and you sit there and look at it and go, okay, whatever, I'm not just going to keep putting rice into it. I'm going to give up. I'm just going to say, okay, fine. I've given you the one thing and I'm going to be off. I know I've heard knights and dukes describe this in different ways, but I like the rice bowl thing. You see who is ready to eat up what you give them. And when they finish it and they come back for more, you're ready to give them more. And I'll assure every student out there that all of us that are geeks about fighting, we've got so much rice to serve you. Honest to God, you're going to fatten yourself until you explode. We want to give it to you, but we want to make you come back for more and more and more, because it shows that you have the passion. We're not just going to jam it down your throat and make you choke on it.
Right.
So that's the relationship of connecting with the passionate teacher to the passionate student. And if it's not there, if you're the teacher, don't try to make it happen with a student that's not passionate. You'll just get nothing but frustrated. Just let it go. You'll find somebody else that is passionate.
Yep.
So Sagan, you've been doing this a lot longer than any of us. What are some of the most effective means you found for people creating training programs where they did not previously exist?
One of the things that has been a thread through this conversation is the fact that if you want to do something, announce yourself. Now, yes, over the years, there have been those who have come to me and said, how did you learn how to do this? And there have been a few that said, I think I can do this. And I took them on as trainees, just like I would a fighter, except I was training them to coach. I was training them to be absolutely visual, receptive, not judgmental, but what did you just see? And report it. Now then, now that you've reported it, how would you confer with the trainee as to how to correct it? Or how would you point out it was a positive? Now, some of them, as we've talked about, they took to it like a duck to water. It was just like teaching them an offside rep. It was like teaching them, one of the fighters that just can't eat enough rice. It was one of those things where, I get it, right? And you have those same moments with a trainee that you have with a fighter where the light goes on and they get where you're taking them, right? Some of them, that came up and said, I think I can do this. They could to a point, but when they realized how much work it really was and all the aspects that needed to be addressed, it lost interest. Maybe it was more work than they thought about. But again, we in the Coach's Corner will encourage you as a coach or a trainer just as much as we will encourage you as a fighter. So if coaching is something you're interested in, again, announce yourself. Let us know. Let's have a conversation and find out where it is you want to go and how best we can serve you.
I know for me, I remember not that long ago, it seems, I went to you and I asked you, I was like, so at what point did you realize that you were a trainer and that you had been a trainer? Because for me, and that's why I keep saying that you just end up there. I never went out to become a trainer. We got, once we started working with Sagan, our practice here in the Barony changed quite a bit to more of a training centric practice. And so we just kind of lived that for a long time. And then, and one of the ways that this happens, is, you help somebody with a thing and that's useful to them. And then, when one of their friends comes up and says, hey, so you got better at this thing, how did that work? And it's like, oh, well, Sean helped me with this, so go ask him. And next thing, so I get another person is like, help me with this thing. It's like, oh, well, you have a different problem than he had, so let me fix that problem. And it just kind of, it really just kind of happened for me. And it was a long time that I'd been teaching at that level. So I realized that yeah, this is something I'm doing. And, the KWRS, the Known World Rattan Symposium in 2005, me and Tristan were there. Actually, Tristan, I taught my class right after he taught his class. And that was an interesting precursor, wasn't it?
Yeah,
a little foreshadowing. But that was an event where that was
15 years ago. Yeah.
15.
Long time.
Yeah, 15 years ago. Yeah, 2005.
You guys were 10?
Yeah, about that. Well, I know it was 15 years ago because my son was barely born.
I ran over Sean in my big wheel.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, and that was the first time that, and I knew going into that was the first time that I would be teaching on sort of a known world level, where the information that I had was being provided to that level of student. So training is one of those things that begins with You're just doing the best you can and helping people out where you can. So teach within your means. Teach what you're comfortable teaching. A couple of weeks ago when we talked about the 5 on each side, when Sagan first talked to me about that sort of stuff, it was revolutionary to me, as it is for most people we talk to about that. But there was a long time that I didn't teach it to my students, because I wanted to understand it before I started passing down a diluted version of it, from something I didn't really understand. And it wasn't that I was trying to like hide secrets or anything, but it was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this thing. I barely understand what he's telling me. And now it's become a absolute core of my training lecture. I start all of my fighting clinics with a 2-hour lecture that includes philosophy on training methodology, which is the class that I taught at KWRS, and then it talk about the universal principles of our sport, the 5 on each side. That's how I start my class, is 2 hours of this. So teach within your means, teach what you're comfortable teaching. Because if you're not comfortable teaching it, it will show, and you will probably do more damage than you do good. And as Tristan mentioned in the episode last weekend, sometimes you give bad information and you got to go back and say, I gave you bad information. And that's all part of the training process. But do what you're comfortable doing, train it as best you're comfortable training. If a student who is newer than you doesn't want to listen to you, try to put them in contact with the resources that they need. And that will demonstrate that you care more about them as a fighter than you care about you as a teacher, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I wanted to jump in with one quick thing too. Yeah. I want to get back to sort of our topic, which is, you're in a distant group, you're in a distant remote area. How do you get started? And I think we covered pretty well if you can find some mentoring, that's going to do you very well. And because we have technology and we have the Coach's Corner, we have a bunch of people, we have ways of getting in contact with people that are somewhat close to you that might be interested to help. Those are all good things. One other thing that we haven't discussed yet, which is, and this I believe in thoroughly, is form a core group. If you can find 1 or 2 or at best 3 other people that feel the same way that you do, that like, hey, let's learn to fight. We really want to do this. If you have a core group that can form a practice or form some kind of a dedicated week-to-week group, then you're going to do a lot better than if it's just you by yourself looking for a mentor 6-8 hours away, or somebody over video that can help you. It will be far better. That core group is going to be the heart and soul of your advancement. And if, in my opinion, if you had the difference between having 2 or 3 dedicated people that were brand new that will work with you week to week to week, that would be even better than finding somebody half a country away that'll get together with you on video twice a month to watch your Pell work and help you. That's going to be good, but getting in live, even with people that are of lesser experience, that's going to really help you. So if you have that small group, and I know we're talking about doing an episode of how do you start a fighting group, how do you start a group from nothing. We're going to be doing that kind of along the way as the virus restrictions lift and people are looking to start establishing a solid fighting group. We'll probably cross over into that episode later. But the concept of a core group is really valuable. In fact, I think it is probably the heart and soul of building excellence in yourself, is get a couple of people that are close by. Like, imagine it a workout buddy. If you want to go to the gym and you want to work out, get somebody to say, I will commit to you 3 times a week and I'll be there. And if you're not there, I'm going to blame you. So you're going to want to come so that you don't get me blaming you for not being here. That's going to do an immense amount for keeping you honest, keeping you going to practice. The best part is you get that core group mixed with a mentor or mentors that can help you from outside. Now you've got a very solid formula for really improving. That's just I wanted to introduce the core group process.
Yeah, and along those lines too is something else that I've mentioned a few times too, is that the minimum number required for a core group,
2. That's
2.
right.
It takes two people who are invested in the training process, who actually want to be better fighters. And usually what ends up happening, if you are invested in the training process and you understand the training process, you have a partner that you can do drills with. You can have a partner that you can encourage and cajole and guilt into going to doing Pell work with. You have that partner that you can do that with. And eventually, if you follow the training process, you are going to become better fighters. Yep. And I get this question a lot in larger groups that are still kind of mired in the smash and bash training methodology, where we just go to practice and everybody just fights and you just figure it out. And I always get asked, how do I change the culture of my practice to be more training centric and training oriented? And it's two people. It's you and one other person. Because what happens is the two of you are going to get better. Like if you follow the training process, it's almost a statistical fact that you are going to get better. And eventually one of those other people that is on the outskirts of that is not part of your core group is going to see that you're getting better. And somebody's going to say, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And how do I get part of that? And then you'll pull another person in there, and then you have three. So the bare minimum number you need to make that core is two people. And it can be a long time of just the two of you doing the work. Have faith in the process, in the training process. If you believe in that, and because it works. The training process is absolutely proven. It works. So yeah, core number's 2. That's it. That's all you need. It's better if you have, 4, 8.
3
10.
is amazing. If you get 3, you can do a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like that, especially
is
in the
amazing.
rural area. It's like we have 4 people at practice. It's a big day.
Yeah.
Let's go. Good. It's been 2 of us here for a month.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to stress is it's reps. It's what we do is an unnatural movement, unnatural actions. The more you can teach your body to throw a flat snap, to throw an off head, to go through those motions, the quicker that turnaround time is between you thinking it and your body doing it. I can't tell you the number of times that I've embarrassed my wife walking down the mall, and I'm just throwing flat snaps as we're walking.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'm like, it's reps. I need to teach my hand to do what I want it to do when I want it to do it. It's all part of that OODA loop: observe, orient, detect, act. The quicker you can make that, the quicker you'll progress. The quicker you teach your body to do what your brain does, the quicker you'll go.
I was at the grocery store yesterday and picked up a bottle of salad dressing.
Yep.
And there I am in the produce aisle, doing Pell work.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, but that kind of thing doesn't surprise us with you. One of the things to remember, and it'll get us back to our topic and some of the things that we've discussed. Remote no longer absolutely means isolated. Yeah. And that is a point that you need to keep in mind. And again, reach out. We're here. There's a lot of people doing a lot of video, a lot of, Pell work, a lot of, things that you can use as a reference. If you don't understand it, what you're seeing, reach out to us and we will assist. But again, announce yourself. Let us know you're there. Let us know your interest and let us know how we can help.
Yeah. Well, let's see, we're it's about 7 o'clock, about an hour and a half in. So we're going to kind of wrap up here a little bit. I know we've got a few other questions that had come in, and I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all of them. Please feel free. We'll go back and answer those questions again in the Facebook stream, but feel free to post up any of these questions to the Coach's Corner as well. And as always, Vesper is out there somewhere.
There she is.
Hi. So
Hi.
as always, we'd like to say thank you for hosting and keeping us on track and getting things rolling for us.
Thank you, Vesper, for lining up our events and doing the graphics and all the great stuff you do.
Here.
You melt my heart. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. What's going on next week? Do we have any announcements to make for next episode?
I believe next week is an interview with Duke Craven. Is that correct?
No, we did Craven last week. I think next week is Duke Sven.
Sven, we have another Duke.
Sven.
So many Dukes.
Nice.
One of
That's
the Svens.
Mhm.
This is the 2-stick Sven. Sven Randallson, his Grace from Ensteward, just stepped down as King of Ensteward during the pandemic here. Came to SCA fighting from one of the foam fighting groups, Amped Guard. He's part of a group of really top end fighters that have come from that. We're going to be talking to him about how some of the foam fighting stuff can benefit our sport as well. I've had the pleasure of talking training methodology with him, and really like his approach to teaching folks. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We had a coaches meeting the other day. We were kind of going through some of the upcoming episodes, and I have to tell you, I'm really excited. There's a lot of really great topics that are coming up here pretty soon.
We've just gotten started.
Yeah, and it's all just really exciting. But yeah, next week we'll have Sven. So looking forward to that. Before we go, I'd like to put out a shout out to all the content creators that are doing similar stuff to what we're doing throughout the SCA. There's a lot of really great stuff that's going on out there. But I'd also like to say that we have recently become aware that there are people watching our broadcasts that are not currently part of the SCA. And to those people who have no idea what we're doing and who we are, I would like to say welcome. And thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us. And if you're interested in seeing what the SCA is about, please reach out to really any of us. You can go to the SCA Coaches Corner on Facebook and let us know there. But we know that there are people out there that aren't part of the SCA that are watching. So welcome. So
Super exciting.
yeah. So, Your Majesty, I would like to say thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any
Thank
final
you,
words
Daman.
for
It's
us?
nice to meet you.
Thank you for including me. Anything I can do to help you guys out, I'm here.
Yeah.
I know this was a great time. Thank you guys.
Right on. All right. With that, I guess we'll wrap up. So, thanks again, everybody, for having us. Tristan, Sagan, thank you again for always.
Thank
So,
you all.
Always a
everybody.
pleasure.
Oh,
Yeah.
Everybody have a good night.
Everybody
Bye
have a good
now.
night. We'll see you all next
Have a
week.
good night.
Bye.